Hello, welcome to Icpess 2008 Congress. Uh, this is 53rd session of the Congress, uh, and I will present the names of participants of this session now. Firstly, the first presentation is the Iranian Securitization of the United States through the Topos of History by Sevgi Balkan-Sahin. Then, uh, Asena Boztaş made a presentation for us. The name of the presentation is Place of Africa Policies in the Turkey-European Union Relations, Turkey Perspective. And then Elaborating of Local Governments in Respect of Political Sociology by Erdal Aydin. Then Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Judgments in Scope of New Regulation in Turkish Law by Ekin Tuna. And then lastly, the last presentation of this session is Traumatic Stress Indicators in Personnel 6 months after attack at Atatürk Airport and Factor Related to Post-Traumatic Growth by Merve, Elif, Şahne and Gökben, Hızlı, Sayar. Now we will listen and watch our participants' videos. Have a nice and pleasant watch. Thank you.
Dear audience, I'm from Sakarya University. I'm the Dr. Asena Boztaş. We prepared this paper for Africa. I study in Africa, and this paper about place of Africa policies in the Turkey-European Union relations, Turkey perspective. And my paper's issue about Turkey turned his face to Africa within multifaceted policy in the post-colonialism term, especially former colonial powers are European countries, as we know. Africa and Turkey has background and historical ties, so there was a problem in this section, study examine. How Turkey and European Union relations will be shaped in this period. What not only the European Union but also European countries think about and Turkey's position in Africa. What is Turkey's aim in the continent? And what will be the next term? My background of the study and Turkey-European Union relations, Turkey's Africa expansion, overview of Turkey's Africa initiative of the European Union countries, current country-based fetticles and former colonial countries in Africa. These days, it's very important in Turkey and in the international relations. European countries, especially England, France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, who have the colonial country before, dislike Turkey's position and expansion to Africa. It's expansion to Africa because they are aware that African people dislike them, but they have also ties to Turkey and they don't like this position. Turkey-European Union relations will not affect it institutionally when we look at the reports, but Turkey and European countries will be in the kind of race in the continent while we look at especially the security problems in there and economically, of course, because the post-colonial term we have in now, we have some research questions in this section. How Turkey and European Union relations developed, how Turkey's expansion in Africa began and going on, what are European Union and European countries' reactions to this expansion? Is this reactions affect Turkey and European Union relations? And we will have details in the paper, but now we have very small time to explain them. While we look at the design of the study, we have to look at, first of all, Turkey's adventure of European Union. I don't want to explain many things about it because there is many papers, many books in about that. The European Union adventure started after World War II, and Turkey has been involved in since their beginning. And after that, 1959. The membership talked about and the adventure began. Then I want to explain about the Turkey's adventure of Africa. It's the more important in this paper, according to me. Three terms we can talk about Turkey and African relations: Ottoman Empire term, establishment of Turkey Republic years. Last term, opening to Africa action plan especially. These terms are very important. Turkey linked with Africa. The third study design of my paper, European countries' reactions to Turkey in Africa. It's the more and more important thing in this presentation, according to me. European Union don't react to Turkey for Europe, Africa expansion institutionally, but while we look at the European countries' medias, we can see some reactions about that, but they are not explain it politically, but US, China and European countries who are in Africa now, especially economically, react to Turkey's military base in Africa. Sudan and Somalia, we have military bases. USA and China aim to control this area only themselves for security, but European countries aim to control this area for their exit point of oil tankers. We can say that economically they want to be there, and they don't want the Turkey will be there economically. African countries, which are post-colonials of colonies of European countries as France, England, do not close fetus schools in them. And when we look at these, we can understand that the European countries don't let the Turkey will be there. The Merve Foundation has recently assumed control of numerous schools previously run by FETÖ around the world, including 32 in Africa. It's the important thing. 32 country in Africa, there is FETÖ schools in there. And Turkey's National Education Ministry and Merve Foundation try to close these schools. And is these reactions affect Turkey and European Union relations? We don't think so. It's not affect very clearly, but while we look at the fetus schools in Africa, Merve Foundation, hardworking foundation we can talk about, Somalia, Nigeria, Guinea, Mauritania, Senegal, Burkina Faso, Chad, South Tom, Gabon. These are in Africa, Afghanistan, Pakistan. We don't care about that. And while we look at the Sudan, and Merve Foundation was in there and closed the fetus schools too. But Africa with 106 schools in 36 countries. So we have to work much more than now. So it's important, and especially the European countries affects these areas because, as we know, we are the post-colonial term, and these countries do what they say, and they say don't close these schools, and they do what they want. And when we look at the conclusion, European Union don't react to Turkey for Africa expansion institutionally. European countries react on media, but not politically. USA, China, and European countries react. Turkey's military base in Africa, Sudan, and Somalia. African countries, which are post-colonial of European countries as France, England, don't close petrol schools in them. And we have to read the international area, international system clearly. And when we read clearly, we have these conclusions, these results we can talk about. And thanks to listen to me, and hope see you in Sakarya University. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, today my presentation's topic is about elaborating local governments in the respect of political sociology. First, I would like to begin with the politics, of course. In order to understand political sociology, we have two terms here, actually, a combination of politics and sociology. Politics begins with the ancient history, and we have to go to look the ancient times with the actually ancient Greeks. So here democracy, we look to already have the concept of democracy and democracy, crazy administration, government, for all types we use. On the other side, demos, public. It means public. So or both concept, the etymological parts of this concept is very important to understand actually democracy. So politics, when we talk about the politics today in the contemporary world, of course we will look the systems whether it's legal or not, and if it is democratic, we accept that okay, it is legal. But in history, of course, there are many types of the systems used in politics, and people or society at that times they have some values, and according to values and they elaborate, they just look the systems. Politics for Aristotle, for Plato, when we look that this discipline actually is very important. Even they define politics as art, as an art of the actually it is politics is master of all arts. So politics is very important. Politics is not only politics. Politics is not tool for the ancient times like the Aristo. Politics actually is a important aim, because in this politics, aim of politics, they debate. So for the ancient times, actually, human becomes human in the context of politics. If there is a polis, there is a kind of city, and then we can talk about the civic civilization, we can talk about humanity. So human perfection can maintain in the arena of politics for the those kind of thinkers, famous thinkers of politicians. Of course, it is should be debated actually for modern times. Okay, let's look the sociology after the politics. Okay, we have to look the concept of sociology. Sociology is a discipline comparing to politics is more actually new phenomena. So with we know Ibn Khaldun is very famous. Muqaddimah book of Ibn Khaldun is one of the father of the sociology. He first looking to society, looking to tribes, looking to their lives, and try to understand the period of the state, period of the society together. So like the seasons, climates actually liked the path he looked, and he tried to describe the main features of the groups, or actually he called two kind of Bedevi and Khadevi society. So in society, actually, we can look the Western story. Here we see, and in our educational systems, all materials actually this is a reality based and shaped by the Westerns. Sociology, like Adam Giddens, when we look at Anthony Giddens, we look, or some sociologists, thinkers, and they try to understand, to try to see the relationship of the sociology and politics. Okay, there is a state in the classical perspective, state more dominant, but on the modern world, NGOs and civil actors is very important. So that's why sociology actually emerged. Sociology, the importance of sociology shows also the development of the human being. If you in Western, especially Western perspective, the humanity, the society, giving more importance. That's why they try to observe the life and the basic character and features of the society. So when we look at political sociology, actually it is a kind of interdisciplinary. It is a kind of intersection. It's a kind of junction of the two important disciplines. So one politics, the other is sociology. So political sociology, comparing with the classical politics, give more important, more significance to society, the groups, and NGOs, non-governmental organizations. So, like Marius de Verger, okay, it's very important actually, in his book of political sociology, he says that, okay, in the 20th century, especially they look politics like the naturalism, like the positive. This is positive mentality actually. They look to politics like mathematics, like physics. Try to elaborate, analyze the basic elements and nature of the politics. But later they understand that every society, every culture, every nation is not unique, and actually not the same. So they unique. So like let's say our seals of our finger, we have very special our seal, like seal, we can talk about it. So we can they understand that society, they also the society, different climate, so different history, they make them unique. So that's why they give up their positivist mentality and try to show the try to understand the plurality, and that's why political sociology is very important. Okay, in modern world, politics, government, power, of course, is the basic, is the center. But on the other side, there are pressure groups, there are interest groups, and there are international organizations. The world is like a village, and we cannot talk about just absolute power. And today, that's why political sociology is important. Okay, if you look at local governments, of course, the politics and society, the best scene for the connecting both discipline is actually local government. So local government is a kind of arena, as a kind of facility giving people try to use their political rights, civil rights, and try to affect the systems they live. So in a district, people live in and believing that they can shape the system, and they can govern themselves. So this is the right, the basic rights, and it is the basic mentality of democracy. People govern themselves for themselves. So this local government actually, that's why very important. So somewhat like the French thinker actually will look. Some of them they say, okay, the best way of the possible democracy is nothing than local governments. So local governments is today people directly, they have rights and they attend, they observe, and they try to produce something in the local governments. That's why local government is very important. Okay, in Turkey or in Turkey or in other countries, we look, of course, in the doctrine. It seems it's very amazing, but in reality, of course, everything is not going like the doctrines. That's why it's very hard, actually, complex issue in local governments, whether it's whether people can have effect or not. This is still basic problem, but on the other side, people have hope in comparing the central government, national government. People have more tendency to manage and to change the systems by regard of the local government. Okay, thank you very much for your listening.
First of all, I would like to thank everybody for this organization. Today, my second topic is recognition and enforcement of foreign judgments in scope of new regulation in Turkish law. Foreign court decisions can be final decision or final evidence or can be enforced only if this foreign court decision has fulfilled the conditions of Articles 50 and 58 of Turkish Private International and Procedural Law. The decisions rendered except the foreign courts shall be subject to the recognition or enforcement only if there is an international treaty or a reciprocity provision allowing for this in principle. There were many studies on giving authority to the administrative authorities or proposals towards and provide to be effective within Turkish private, international and procedural law code. After the amendment of Article 27 of the Civil Registration Act, the amendment has provided direct registration without any requirement of a court decision because before the amendment, if you have foreign divorce judgment, only thing that you can do is have a lawsuit in the court. But after this amendment, like European countries, there is new possibility to register this judgment that terminates marriage and also rendered administrative divorce decisions definitive without any court interference. The new amendment of Article 27 of Civil Registration Act has made substantial change on the subject. The amendment has provided a direct registration without any requirement of a court decision of divorce decisions on other decisions that terminates marriage and also rendered administrative divorce decisions definitive without any court interference. Because before the amendment, only thing that is a court case. The very first amendment brought by this regulation is that provided that the conditions are met which are mentioned in the Civil Registration Code, a foreign court decision on foreign divorce judgment in Turkish law may be effective in Turkey without recognition. So, at least you don't need to have recognition case. This Civil Registration Act As a result of the amendment made with accomplishment of the conditions required by law, foreign divorce judgment, nullity of marriage judgment, annulment of marriage or marital breakdown, which is given by foreign court or foreign administrator, will be directly registered without any recognition lawsuit. The scope of this amendment is, as I mentioned, foreign divorce judgment, nullity of marriage judgment, annulment of marriage or marital breakdown, which is given either foreign court or foreign administrative court. In foreign countries, it is possible to divorce in the presence of municipalities, notaries, diplomatic missions, consulates, and religious authorities, and sometimes even without intervention of these authorities. For example, in the presence of a notary in the public in Russia, or Denmark or Norway, with only the decision of the governor or the mayor is it possible to divorce. But this kind of judgments that rendered by public authorities or administrative authorities, which this kind of judgments are not possible to recognize in Turkey because our Turkish private international and procedural law determined that only foreign court decisions can be recognized. The recognition of foreign divorces decision of the administrative authority in matters of doctrine has led many discussions in the public opinion in Turkey that they should be allowed to bear the consequences of foreign administrative divorce judgments. First opinion of this doctrine is unless there is important reason, foreign divorce judgments which rendered by foreign administrative authorities cannot be invalid only if they are rendered by administrative authorities, not by courts. The decision of divorce given by the foreign administrative authorities is that they will not be recognized in Turkish courts because they are not court decisions. If the divorce decree given by the administrative authorities has been audited and approved by a judicial body, it means that these administrative decisions have almost become a court decision, which means that they can be recognized in this way because they will be approved. In doctrine, there are studies on giving authority to administrative authorities to authority of divorce without divorce lawsuits and provide to be effective of foreign divorce judgment under Turkish private international and procedural law code. Amendment on Civil Registration Act on foreign divorce judgments is the requirement for the recognition of the relevant foreign divorce profits has abolished under certain conditions. But if the conditions met under amendment, registration without any recognition lawsuit. Decision related to divorce, annulment of marriage, determination of availability of marriage, and the decision must be rendered by the judicial or administrative authorities of the foreign state. The decision must be given by the competent judicial or administrative authorities in respect of the laws of the state to which the decision is rendered. So now, for the administrative authorities, it's open to recognize the foreign divorce judgments. The decision must be in res judicata in respect of the laws of the state which the decision, where is the decision is rendered, and the decision must not be explicitly contrary to the Turkish public order, and the parties have to apply for this registration together. As a conclusion, as a result of Civil Registration Act, with the acceptance of the request for registration will determine the end of marriage and recognized of in Turkey also. But since the registration is not a recognition transaction, it will not have any effect. It will be only the registration. With the decree of 1960, this amendment is rendered in Civil Registration Act and brought a significant change in our international private law system by enabling the direct registration of decisions ending the marriage, such as the divorce nullity of marriage given in judicial and administrative offices in foreign countries. Within this amendment, recognition of foreign judgments process is not abolished. If the conditions are not met, which is required in Civil Registration Act, Article 27, there is always possibility for recognition of this kind of foreign judgments under Turkish private international and procedural law code. This amendment is only for registration of the foreign judgments easily and rapidly, which is set forth in the amendments. This amendment aims to reduce the occupancy of courts. Registration of mentioned foreign judgments without judicial process serves this aim, but still it is critical to review the judgment by administrative authorities, not courts, in terms of required conditions, especially scope of public order. So what I would like to tell here, before the registration of these judgments, the public authority is competent to review the security of these judgments. So it means that the authority that you give the court is the same authority that now you're giving the public administrative places. I would like to thank you for your attention.
Hi, this is Gökben, Hızlı, Sayar from University. Today I want to present you a brief report on traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth in airport workers 6 months after an attack to Atatürk Airport. For the introduction, I can say that psychological trauma is an event or experience or situation that threatens the life, body integrity, or mental balance of people, and which is hard to overcome emotionally. And as in the description of trauma, terrorist attacks are trauma too. Terrorist attacks are a form of war designed to cause the highest psychological effect. And many kinds of anxiety disorders, PTSD, depression, and other anxiety disorders may be seen after terrorist attacks, as it happens in other psychological traumas. Post-traumatic growth is a theory that explains this kind of transformation following trauma. In this transformation, the people who endure psychological struggle following a trauma can often see positive growth afterwards. After trauma, survivors may develop new understandings of themselves, the world they live in, how to relate to other people, the kind of future they might have, and a better understanding of how to live their life. And briefly, the aim of the present study is to investigate the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorders and signs of post-traumatic growth in a group of airport workers 6 months after a terror attack to Istanbul airport. The study group, the sample group of the research consists private security officers who work at Atatürk Airport and who are on duty during the terrorist attack, which led to 45 deaths and 238 injuries. And in this study, a total of 121 people participated. All the participants surveyed by informed consent form and sociodemographic data form and post-traumatic stress symptoms scale and post-traumatic growth scale. The results, in the results, the women found to have statistically significantly higher PTSD symptom levels than men, and there was a statistical significant difference between the duration of occupation and the PTSD scores when we compare the employees who work between 1 to 5 years and to 6 to 10 years. The employees with lower years had significantly higher PTSD scores, and it was found that post-traumatic growth scores of women were higher than males. When we make some regression statistics, it has found that gender is a significant predictor of PTSD and also post-traumatic growth scars in favor of women. And also it has found that younger age is a significant predictor of showing PTSD symptoms, but not for post-traumatic growth score. It has seen that the education level and the marital status variables cannot predict PTSD or post-traumatic growth scores, and higher PTSD scores found to be correlated with higher post-traumatic growth scores. Women reported to have more intrusive symptoms when compared to men. For example, for the items, some uncomfortable images, thoughts, and memories about the event come to mind again and again. 45% of women and 21% of men reported this symptom after 6 months trauma. I see repeatedly uncomfortable dreams about the event, the item, and I feel uncomfortable when something reminds me the event. Are the items which show which has been seen more in women when compared to men. And women reported to have more avoidance symptoms when compared to men, like the items I will avoid some events or situations for preventing to remember the past events, or I avoid thinking about the incident. Women reported to have more dissociative symptoms when compared to men. For example, the items I suddenly find myself in a place where I don't know how it came. It's 10% in women and 1% in men after 6 months of trauma. There are times when I never remember some very important events in my life, was reported by 14% of women and 3% of men. And for the post-traumatic growth scale, for the items, I have a greater appreciation for the value of my own life. It was both in women and in men reported by 78% of the participants. I discovered that I am stronger than I thought I was. It was 72%. I changed my priorities about what is important in life. I have a greater sense of closeness with others. I know better that I can handle difficulties, are the first 5 frequent items reported by the participants. After 6 months after an airport terrorist attack, the female staff of airport shows higher level of traumatic stress than the male staff. Employees with 1 to 5 years of professional work experience show more traumatic stress than workers between 6 to 10 years, and a great majority of the staff with PTSD symptoms reported they do not prefer to seek psychiatric help. And major reason for this essential is that it is rather to how the individual struggles. There are a number of things that people who have experienced trauma in psychology identify, such as of life or changing priorities about what is important in life. And as a conclusion of the study, despite the limitations of the study, it's thought that the staff that survived a traumatic event have a higher level of PTSD symptoms 6 months after the terror attack. Survivors with high post-traumatic stress who may have the most needed positive coping strategies must be directed, and future studies must focus on therapies designed to utilize positive growth and coping both in the short and long run. I thank to you all. Have a nice meeting.